Good morning. This is Richard Peter. It is Monday, April the 6th in the year of our Lord Jesus Christ, 2009. Let's bow our heads for a moment of silence, but let me tell you what this silence is all about. There is an infinite awareness that existed before anything appeared in this visible universe. Now multiply this visible universe by an infinite number and know that there's only one infinite awareness that created all of the visible and invisible universes that we're aware of. Remember, we can only be aware of what universes we are able to understand with our minds and see with our telescopes, and that's with five physical senses. Imagine the universes that are invisible to us because we're limited by only five physical senses, where God has no limit whatsoever. So when we take a moment to pray, and by prayer I mean listening, that's the only proper prayer when dealing with an infinity and infinite awareness that is of this magnitude, that which creates all that's both seen and unseen. Let's be quiet now before Him for about a minute. Let's be aware of who is speaking as we enter into that silence together. It is the infinite awareness that is the creator of all that is seen and unseen, that exists prior to the formation of any physical particle of matter, and therefore is the controller of every particle of matter that proceeds out of this infinite intelligence. Now remember that this infinite awareness doesn't fight against itself. It doesn't have demons that oppose it. It doesn't have an evil force that's opposing it. It is by definition infinite. Therefore, there are no other powers other than its own awareness as being the only power. Any particles of matter that proceed are subject to the infinite awareness of this infinitely good, infinitely intelligent God that has no destructive element in Him. In Him there is no darkness, there is only light. In Him there is only love, there is no hate. In Him there is only forgiveness, there is no revenge. That bears repeating. In Him there is total light, total love, total forgiveness, no revenge, absolute power, absolute intelligence, infinite wisdom, infinite understanding, all summed up in the word love. Now then, where does evil come from? We are created in the image and likeness of this God. We are co-creating beings with Him, and it is done in our external particular circumstance, those particles that are in our immediate control, those physical particles that take form according to our belief. You see, the universe is integrated. Thought appears as thing, just as the sea appears as an iceberg, just as the mahogany appears as a piano. The thought appears as the thing. You don't have to understand how this operates, but you do have to understand that God is invisible spirit in which there is no particle of matter, and that His thinking, His belief system, automatically creates those physical forms that reflect Him. Now, where does evil come from? Where does this dual universe of good and evil come from? It comes from the original error, the original virus, the original mistake in which man was caused to believe, and in a moment I'm going to go over the secret as to where this belief came from, in both good and evil. He saw God in one place, Him in another, instead of seeing them joined together the way mahogany is joined to a piano, the way the ocean is joined to the wave. That sense of separation, which is a hypnotic suggestion coming from your spiritual enemy, is the original sin. When you're integrated with this God who exists before starlight, nothing but good can proceed. The particles that make up the forms in your life, automatically line up with the thought, intention, will, and love of the original creator unless you're infected with that universal virus, the belief in good and evil. The beliefs form the particles exactly, scientifically according to what your beliefs are in your inmost heart. So if you believe in both good and evil, then you have a family that lives in both good and evil. You have a city that lives in both good and evil, a nation that lives in both good and evil, a world that lives in forms of both good and evil. And if you look at the history of the world over the last 7,000 years, you'll see that it forms itself as both good and evil. The pairs of opposites are the two horns of the devil, and that brings me to my next point. The source of this infection is Lucifer, who is now known as Satan. The story of the Bible is a story of alien invasion. Okay. And I wouldn't call it alien invasion. That's something that is cute to say, but the truth is that there are no aliens in God. God is the Father of all life, of all forms of life, everything from the ant to the angelic creation, to Einstein here on our planet, to a child that's just coming into conscious awareness of his human identity. All of these are creations of the one God. And the life forms continue to circulate through infinite numbers of bodies until they finally come into recognition of their true identity and their true name, and they find themselves to be connected to God as close as mahogany is to a piano, and they share the name of God, which is I. The I that is the common name that unites Christian, Muslim, Jew, Buddhist, every religion you can think of, every man, woman, boy, and girl in that religion has the name of God, which is the I. Now, I'm not talking about the ego I, the I Richard, the I Mary, the I Sam with a birth date and a death date. What I'm talking about is the infinite I that appears as these individual identities, Mary, Sue, and Sam. But that common identity, I, is the divine I, the name of God, which he shares with us. And that divine I is what existed before starlight sparkled in any of the visible or invisible universes. That divine I fills this empty space that you create, that we created together. We created an empty space in which infinite intelligence can flow and educate us. But there is a spiritual enemy of the angelic order. The angelic order was the first group of beings created by this infinite God. They were the ones who formed the individual universes and the individual planets. They governed them, they ruled them. 2/3 were loyal to the intelligence that created them. 1/3 fell and has tried from the very beginning of time to prevent anybody from advancing under their control. On planet Earth, during the period of evolution when men crawled up out of the sea, we started as fish with fins that became legs. We evolved into what you call monkeys or beings with fur. Aliens visited the planet, experimented with a small group of them, injecting them with angelic DNA. And those aliens that unfortunately invaded the planet, some were true to the true God, others were rebellious against him. And unfortunately, Adam and Eve listened to the wrong advice, the advice of the fallen angel Lucifer, and they took the belief of good and evil into the very soul and heart, and that was the fall of man, or the fall of the human race. And since that time, we have all been in slavery to Lucifer and to the Luciferian monetary system, which now takes the form of the Federal Reserve Bank. I know this sounds far out, but exactly what's happening is Luciferians are controlling, with about 500 banking families, they're controlling the economic destiny of the world, and they have severely stamped their slavery upon every man, woman, and boy and girl on this planet. Until you realize who you are, until you return to the garden of consciousness where there is no belief in good and evil, where there's only the single I, appearing as infinite good, then you will forever be enslaved to these angels who've infected your consciousness with the belief in good and evil. This is very important that you meditate on this. I'll be explaining it further. I'm going to talk about the alien invasion, the good and the evil angels. Even though there's only one angelic creation, some have perverted their estate and used their power to destroy the souls of men. Until we talk again tomorrow.